Okay, so I've got my 4 sheets printed out for the large egg. And you want to print it off in color because if you look at the key, you'll see that the colors tell you what to do with each different line. So for example, red lines are supposed to be cut and blue lines help you align tabs as you glue them. And I printed these off on heavyweight cardstock paper because you want your egg to have rigidity and strength. And the first step is just to cut all of this out. And again, if you look at the key, you can see that we're gonna cut all the solid black lines, not the dotted black lines, the ones that are solid black. And because we're cutting all solid black lines, that's gonna include the shorter ones within the shape. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut those. Now that I've finished cutting all the black lines, I'm gonna cut all those short little red lines. You're basically just cutting out teeny tiny triangles. You're also going to cut the red line on this small circle. Okay, and now that everything is completely cut out, it is time to crease. And if we look at the key, you can see that all dotted lines are supposed to be creased. And I like to crease them outwardly first, so that way you can see that that dotted line is right there on the crease that you're forming. And then you can flip it back the other way because we do want the dotted lines to be on the inside of the crease, but it's easier to start out with them on the outside. All right, and now I'm gonna move on to these smaller pieces. You're even gonna crease the lines on these pieces as well. All right, and now that I have everything creased, I am ready to start gluing together the pieces. So here I have all the pieces of the top cap laid out. You can see that I've already glued a couple of them together, numbers 1 and 2. What you're gonna do is the tabs on one of them, here and over here, is gonna glue into the outlined blue area on another piece. If you remember from our key, we know that blue lines help to align tabs when gluing them in place. So I'll go ahead and put glue here and then line this tab up inside of that. All right, and then same thing down here. I'll put glue in this outlined area. All right, and I'm gonna keep doing that with all of them. In these pieces, they also have a little yellow line and this tab that says no glue. And with yellow lines, according to our key, you are not going to cut it or crease it. Do not cut or crease. This little yellow tab simply overlaps this edge of the previous piece just a little bit. So that way from the outside, we don't have gaps in between our panels. And the reason why it says no glue is it's too small of a surface area to get any glue on. It would ooze out and seep out right there and it just wouldn't look good. It's just not necessary. Just gluing on this tab and this tab will suffice. All right, and now all that is glued together. This is what it looks like from the inside, and this is what it looks like from the outside. All right, and then we have this little piece right here that we've cut along that red line, and I'm going to put glue inside this little triangle just a little bit, and then I'm gonna bring this edge over to meet that blue line right there. And then you can see it turns it into a very shallow cone shape, like a very shallow bowl. And that is gonna glue to the inside right here. So I'm gonna put glue around the inside edge of this circle and then place this on to fill in that hole at the top. Now I'm going to work on the pieces that make up the bottom cap of the egg. And again, when we look at the key, we see that blue lines help us line up tabs when gluing them in place. So this tab is going to glue into that outlined area in blue. So I'm gonna go ahead and put glue in that spot and then line up this tab inside of that. All right, and then same thing with this. This tab is gonna line up in that spot. And then this tab is gonna line up in that spot. And now I'm going to glue all of these small tabs inside of these outlined areas in blue in between every single one of these pieces. Okay, and then you also see these little areas outlined with a yellow line that say no glue. The only purpose of this little yellow tab is so that it overlaps this edge just a little bit, so that way after you glue it closed, there isn't a gap on the other side. And so here's our bowl completed, and these little yellow tabs, you want them on the inside of the bowl. So this one, for example, is incorrect. I want to tuck that little tab back inside like the other ones. All right, so now I have both of them complete, the bottom cap and the top cap. Here they are from the inside, their side profiles, and then here they are from the other side. Now it is time to move on to this piece. And I'm going to make a pastel green egg. For the large egg, I use 34 sheets. You could maybe use a few less. You could, use more. If you want your accordion fold to look fuller and have more panels in it, then you can always use more sheets of paper. But I like 34, I think that's a good number. And I like to use cardstock paper for making the accordion fold body of the egg, just like I like to use cardstock paper for the top and bottom cap. The paper that I'm using to make the accordion fold body is slightly thinner than the cardstock for the top and bottom cap. This pastel green paper is 65-pound cover, and then the cardstock for the top and bottom cap, that was 110-pound cover. You can vary the paper weight that you use, but I would suggest that you use cardstock and not your standard thin printer paper. And this is your standard 8.5 by 11-inch paper. All right, so I'm gonna take all 34 of these sheets and fold them in half like a hot dog. If you want to, you can do 2 at a time. All right, so here I've got all 34 of my sheets creased in half, and now I'm ready to start tracing my stencil on them. And you can see on our pattern here, it says, line up this edge of the template with the crease side of the paper. So you want it to line up with this side where you see the crease, not this side over here that opens up. We don't want that. We want this side. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this on top of there, bring it to the very edge, and I'm gonna go ahead and trace. All right. And I'm gonna do that to all of my pieces. And then I'm going to cut that out. All right, and when you open it up, it should look like this, the full shape of an egg. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that to all the rest of my pieces. And if you wanna save time, you can actually put two inside of each other so you can cut through more than one at a time. All right, so here I go. I have cut out all 34 of my sheets, and now I'm ready to start gluing the panels. If we look at our key here, we can see pink lines says where to extrude glue on the panels of the accordion egg. So we can see that we're going to put a line of glue at the top, a line of glue at the bottom, and a dot of glue here in the middle at the edge of the egg. The first step is to do this dot of glue. And this dot of glue doesn't go on the outside of the egg, it's gonna go on the inside of the panel right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that dot of glue right there. And if you really want to be precise, you can take a hole punch and you can hole punch this hole out. Like that. So that way you can trace your dot of glue on there. So now you know exactly where to put it. All right, but that's optional. You don't have to do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that to all the rest of my panels. All right, so now all that is done. Okay, and now it's time to look at the glue lines at the bottom and at the top of each egg. So if you want to, you could lightly sketch these lines on here. Like that. Before you stack them and glue them together. And then you could put your glue right along that line before you stack on the other piece. Or if you feel confident enough, you can just eyeball it with the glue gun. You don't have to draw the lines at all. Or if you want to, you can X-Acto blade it out. So that way you can trace those voids that you cut out to be super precise. Then you'll extrude glue along those lines and then stack on your next piece of paper. And to keep the pieces aligned as you stack them on top of each other to glue them together, I like to put them in binder clips. And because you have so many panels to stack on top of each other, it's too many pieces to fit all of them in a binder clip at once. So I like to divide them into 2 even stacks and do 1 stack at a time. Now you can go ahead and start putting glue in between each layer. And then once you're done gluing the top all together, you can move the binder clips up here to the top. So that way you can do all the lines on the bottom part now. All right, and then when that side is done, you can take off your binder clips and it opens up like this, like an accordion fold. And I'm gonna do the same thing with all of these pieces now. And now that I have both stacks complete, I'm gonna go ahead and stack them on top of each other. And now I'm going to bring this panel over to meet this panel and glue them together so it stays open like an accordion fold egg like this. And I'm going to put the glue in the exact same place that I've been putting the glue in between all the other panels. A line at the top, and a line at the bottom. So now the accordion fold egg will stay open like this. Now, if you're interested, let me show you how I make the bows that go on top of my egg. There's different methods to make bows, so if you want to just do your own way, that's totally fine too. So I'm going to start with ribbon that is 1.5 inches wide. And I'm going to cut out 4 pieces that are each 4.5 inches long. Then I'm going to put a thin line of glue down the edge of one of those pieces and take another piece to barely overlap it and adhere them together. And you only want to overlap them by 1/4 inch or so. Do the same thing with the other 2 pieces. Then put another line of glue here, so that way you can glue the ribbon back on itself into a little loop. And do the same thing with the other piece. And if the ribbon you're using is nylon or plasticky, then you can use a flame to fuse those edges together so it no longer frays. And now we're looking at that edge of the ribbon that we just fused together with the lighter. We are going to fold that. First, I'm going to fold it in half, then into what looks like the letter M, as in mom. Then I'm going to crease those 2 little tabs back inward to create this zigzag shape. Then I'm going to put a dot of hot glue in between each one of the folds of the zigzag. Squeeze that together. And you can also put it in a binder clip while the glue cools and hardens. And do the same thing to the other piece. Now we're going to glue those 2 pieces together. And you only want to overlap them by 1/4 inch or so. Then cut off a small piece of that 1.5 inch wide ribbon. Put a couple lines of glue on it and fold it in half. Then glue it on and wrap it around the part where the two halves of the bow overlap each other. Then to create the tails of the bow, I like to use ribbon that is slightly narrower. This ribbon is only 1/2 inch wide, and I'm going to cut off a piece that is 12 inches long. Then I'm going to fold it in half at a slight angle to create two separate tails like this. Put a little hot glue inside that fold to keep the ribbon in this position. Cut each tail at a slight diagonal angle. And again, if you're using a nylon or a plasticky ribbon, you can use a flame to fuse the edges together so they cannot fray anymore. Then glue the tails of your bow to the center of your top cap. Then glue on the ears of your bow on top of that. And now all the pieces of your egg are complete, so you can stack them and put it on display.